I'm Lana, 34, and until last month, I thought I had the perfect marriage. 7 years with Jake, my college sweetheart, in our beautiful Boston home. I'm an interior designer who helps others create their dream spaces. But my own dream shattered with one notification. A jewelry receipt on my husband's phone seemed innocent until I saw him slip that $4,000 necklace around another woman's neck. The look on her face when I revealed who actually paid for it, priceless. If you're watching this, I'd love to know where you're from. Hit that like and subscribe button while I tell you how I discovered who this mystery woman really was and what I did next. Jake and I met during our sophomore year at Boston University. I was studying interior design, and he was pursuing finance with dreams of becoming an investment banker. Our paths crossed at a mutual friend's party on a crisp autumn evening. I remember his warm smile and how he offered me his jacket when he noticed me shivering on the balcony. We talked until sunrise, discovering our shared love for architecture, old movies, and blueberry pancakes. Our connection was immediate and intense. Within weeks, we were inseparable, studying together at the library, exploring Boston's historic neighborhoods, and planning our futures. Jake was attentive, thoughtful, and ambitious. He would surprise me with small gifts that showed he was truly listening when I talked about my passions and dreams. After graduation, Jake landed a position at a prestigious financial firm, while I began working for a small interior design studio. We supported each other through the challenges of starting our careers, celebrating every small victory together. On weekends, we would explore potential neighborhoods where we might someday buy a home, already imagining our life together. 3 years into our relationship, Jake took me to Cape Cod for what I thought was just a weekend getaway. As the sun set over the ocean, he got down on one knee on the beach and presented a vintage-inspired emerald ring that he knew I would prefer over a traditional diamond. He had remembered a casual comment I made months earlier about loving my grandmother's emerald jewelry. That attention to detail was so typical of the Jake I fell in love with. Our wedding in Vermont was everything I had dreamed of. An intimate gathering at a restored barn with fairy lights and wildflowers everywhere. My father, who had been initially skeptical of Jake's intentions, gave a toast about how happy he was to see his daughter with someone who clearly adored her. Our first dance was to La Vie en Rose, and Jake whispered promises of forever in my ear as we swayed. Fast forward to our 7th year of marriage, and we had built what seemed like the perfect life. Our colonial home in an upscale Boston suburb featured the grand staircase I had always wanted, and the home office Jake needed. I had established my own interior design business with several high-profile clients, while Jake had been promoted to senior investment advisor at his firm. Our social circle consisted of other successful couples we'd meet for dinner parties or weekend getaways. We traveled to Europe annually, alternating between exploring new destinations and revisiting our favorites in Italy. Date night was sacred every Friday, without fail, even during our busiest seasons. Jake still brought me coffee in bed most mornings and would send flowers to my office for no particular reason. From the outside, we were the couple others envied, the ones who still held hands at movies and laughed at each other's jokes. We discussed having children, soon had started saving for fertility treatments if needed, and were researching the best school districts. Our discussions about the future always aligned perfectly, as if we were reading from the same script. But looking back, there were subtle shifts I chose to ignore. About 6 months ago, Jake started working later than usual. His explanation was a new international client requiring calls during Asian business hours. Reasonable enough. His phone became an extension of his hand, and he would take calls in another room, which was new for us. He explained it was for privacy, due to client confidentiality. Date nights were occasionally canceled last minute due to urgent work situations. He seemed distracted during conversations, often asking me to repeat myself. There were unexplained absences on weekends when he would claim to be meeting colleagues for golf or drinks to discuss business opportunities. I rationalized these changes as part of his career growth. The financial industry is demanding, and Jake had always been ambitious. Perhaps he was working toward another promotion or bonus. Maybe he was stressed about our discussions of starting a family and the financial responsibilities that would bring. With our 7th anniversary approaching in a few months, I even wondered if he was planning something special, as he had for previous milestones. A surprise trip, perhaps. He had taken me to Paris for our 5th anniversary, spending months secretly coordinating with my assistant to clear my schedule. Despite my rationalizations, small seeds of doubt began taking root. Sometimes I would catch him smiling at his phone, only to quickly turn it over when I entered the room. He began showering as soon as he got home from work, something he'd never done before. His explanations all made sense individually, but together they formed a pattern I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with. Still, I trusted Jake. We had built our relationship on honesty and communication. We had weathered career setbacks, the loss of his father, my health scare 3 years ago when doctors found a benign tumor. Through it all, we had been a team. I couldn't imagine Jake betraying that bond. Or perhaps I didn't want to imagine it. I told myself I was being paranoid. That too many of my married clients complained about unfaithful spouses, and their stories were making me suspicious without cause. I reminded myself that Jake wasn't like those other husbands. He was mine, and our love was different. How naive I was. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. Jake had texted that he would be home late again, another client dinner he couldn't avoid. I had spent the day finalizing designs for a waterfront property and was exhausted. After a simple dinner alone, I poured myself a glass of wine and settled on our living room sofa with my sketchbook, working on ideas for our own kitchen renovation. Around 9:30, I heard Jake's key in the door. He seemed surprised to find me still awake. "Tough day?" I asked, noting his loosened tie and the slight shadows under his eyes. "The usual," he replied, kissing my forehead briefly. "I need a shower." As he headed upstairs, his phone, which he had placed on the coffee table, lit up with a notification. I wouldn't normally look at his phone. We had always respected each other's privacy. But something about his distant behavior lately made me glance at the screen. It was a text message notification, partially visible. "Your order is ready for pickup at Winston Jewelers. Thank you for your purchase." My heart did a little flip. Was Jake buying me jewelry? It wasn't near any special occasion, but he had surprised me with spontaneous gifts before. Perhaps this explained his recent mysterious behavior. Planning a surprise gift would be so like the thoughtful man I married. Then his phone buzzed again with another notification, and before I could look away, I saw a message preview from someone named Sophia. "Can't wait for tomorrow. Missed you today." A cold sensation spread through my chest. Who was Sophia? Jake had never mentioned anyone by that name at work. My mind raced through our social circle, our neighbors, his colleagues I had met at company functions. No Sophia. I sat there, wine forgotten, staring at his phone as if it might offer more answers. I heard the shower running upstairs. I had perhaps 5 minutes before Jake would return. I had never checked Jake's phone before. We had built our marriage on trust, and this felt like crossing a line. But the combination of the jewelry notification and this mystery woman's message created a storm of anxiety I couldn't ignore. My hand trembled as I picked up his phone. It was locked, of course, but I knew his password. 6 digits, the month and year we met. Was that ironic now, using our anniversary as protection for his secrets? I opened his messages first, looking for this Sophia. There was no conversation under that name. He must have deleted their exchanges. My stomach twisted. Next, I checked his email, scanning for the jewelry store notification. There it was, from Winston Jewelers, one of the most exclusive jewelry stores in Boston. I opened it, and my breath caught in my throat. A receipt for a diamond pendant necklace. $4,800. purchased just 3 days ago with a note that it would be ready for pickup on Thursday. Tomorrow. At first, I felt a flutter of excitement. Was this for me after all? But our anniversary was months away. My birthday had passed 2 months ago, and Jake had given me a beautiful set of professional-grade kitchen knives I had been coveting along with a weekend spa retreat. There was no obvious occasion for such an extravagant gift. Could it be for his mother? But her birthday wasn't for another 4 months, and she preferred bracelets to necklaces, as Jake well knew. Perhaps for his sister. But we had already sent her a joint gift for her birthday last month. Maybe it was for my upcoming promotion. I was in the final stages of negotiating a contract to design a celebrity chef's new restaurant, but I hadn't even told Jake about the possibility yet. I scrolled through his calendar looking for clues. Thursday at noon had an entry simply labeled Lunch Winston. No location, no details of who with. Just those 2 words. The shower turned off upstairs. I quickly closed all the apps I had opened, cleared the recent apps screen, and placed the phone exactly as I had found it. My heart pounded as I picked up my sketchbook again, trying to appear normal. Jake came downstairs in his bathrobe, hair damp, smelling of his expensive sandalwood soap. "Not in bed yet?" he asked casually, picking up his phone and slipping it into his pocket without checking it. "Just finishing some ideas," I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "Are you hungry? I can heat up some leftovers." "No thanks, I ate at the dinner," he replied, heading to the kitchen. "Just going to grab some water. Don't stay up too late." We went through the motions of our normal evening routine. I asked about his day, and he gave vague answers about meetings and client calls. He asked about my projects, and I shared details about the waterfront property, watching his face for signs of guilt or distraction. He seemed normal, engaged, even asking appropriate questions about my design choices. As we got ready for bed, I debated confronting him with what I had found. But what had I found, really? A jewelry purchase and a text from someone I didn't know. It wasn't definitive proof of anything. If I accused him now, he could easily explain it away, and I would look like the untrusting wife. No, I needed more information. I needed certainty before I upended our marriage with accusations. As we lay in bed, Jake falling asleep quickly while I stared at the ceiling, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would visit Winston Jewelers myself. I called my assistant first thing in the morning and rearranged my schedule, claiming a migraine. In 7 years of working together, I had rarely taken sick days, so she didn't question it. Jake had left early for a breakfast meeting, kissing me goodbye while I pretended to be half asleep. Once alone, I began planning my approach. Winston Jewelers was in the heart of downtown Boston in the upscale shopping district. If Jake was meeting someone there at noon, I needed to be in position well before that. I chose my outfit carefully, a navy pantsuit. I rarely wore large sunglasses and a scarf to partially obscure my face. I didn't normally go for such dramatic accessories, but I couldn't risk Jake or this mystery woman recognizing me. I felt ridiculous, like I was playing detective in my own marriage. This wasn't me. I had always been straightforward, addressing issues directly, but something deep inside warned me that this situation called for caution. During the drive downtown, I rehearsed what I would say to the store employees. I wouldn't mention Jake by name. I would simply inquire about pendant necklaces, perhaps pretending I was looking for a gift. If I was lucky, I might glean information about the specific piece Jake had purchased. Winston Jewelers was even more intimidating than I had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and the jewelry sat on velvet displays inside glass cases. A security guard nodded politely as I entered. The store was quiet, with only 2 other customers being helped by sales associates. I wandered toward the necklace display, pretending to browse while gathering my courage. A young woman with a sleek blonde bob approached her name tag reading Amanda. "Good morning, ma'am. Welcome to Winston Jewelers. May I help you find something special today?" Her smile was genuine, not the forced retail version I had expected. "Just browsing?" I said, then added, Actually, I'm interested in pendant necklaces, something elegant but understated. Amanda brightened. You're in luck. We have several beautiful options. Our diamond pendants are particularly popular. She led me to a specific display case. Did you have a particular style in mind? I'm not sure, I said, studying the necklaces. What would you recommend for a special occasion gift? Our signature piece is this one, Amanda said, pointing to a stunning diamond pendant in a teardrop design. It's been featured in several magazines recently. 14-karat white gold with a 1-carat diamond. It's one of my personal favorites. My heart raced. This had to be it. The price tag showed $5,200, close to the receipt amount I had seen. It's beautiful, I agreed. Has it been popular lately? Amanda nodded enthusiastically. Very. We actually sold one just this week to a gentleman who has excellent taste. He's been a repeat customer, always selects the most exquisite pieces. His wife must be very lucky. I swallowed hard at the mention of a wife. Is that so, repeat customer? Oh, yes, Amanda continued, unaware of my internal turmoil. He's purchased several pieces over the past few months, always our finest designs. Several pieces. Over months, my mind reeled at the implication. Is the pendant available for immediate purchase? I asked, needing to keep the conversation going. Absolutely, Amanda replied. Though if you'd prefer something custom, we would need about 2 weeks. The gentleman I mentioned is actually picking up his pendant today. We needed to adjust the chain length slightly. Bingo. This confirmed what I had suspected. Jake was indeed coming to pick up a necklace today. I'll need to think about it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you for your help, Amanda. I left the store, my legs shaky beneath me. I needed somewhere to wait and watch. Across the street was a small cafe with outdoor seating that offered a perfect view of the jewelry store entrance. I ordered a coffee I had no intention of drinking and settled in to wait. The minutes ticked by painfully slowly. I checked my watch repeatedly, starting at every suited man who approached the store. As noon approached, my anxiety peaked. What if he didn't show up? What if he had changed his plans after I found the notification? At 12:15, I was considering giving up when a familiar figure approached the store. Jake, in his gray suit, the one I had helped him select for important client meetings. He checked his watch, then his phone, before entering Winston Jewelers. I should have left then. Part of me knew that whatever I was about to witness would change everything. I could have gone home, confronted him there in private, given him the chance to explain. But I couldn't move. I needed to see for myself. 10 minutes later, another person approached the store. A woman. Young, perhaps late 20s, with long dark hair and a stylish red dress. She moved with confidence, checking her reflection in the store window before entering. My coffee sat untouched as I stared at the store entrance. 20 excruciating minutes passed before I saw movement. The woman emerged first, followed by Jake, and around her neck gleamed a new pendant catching the sunlight. As they stood on the sidewalk, Jake adjusted the necklace tenderly, his fingers lingering at her collarbone. Then he kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss, intimate and familiar, right there on the busy Boston street. In that moment, my world collapsed. I couldn't breathe. The busy street, the people walking by, the traffic noise, all faded away as I watched my husband with another woman. My vision tunneled until all I could see was Jake's hand on the small of her back, her delighted smile as she touched the necklace at her throat, their easy intimacy that spoke of an established relationship. The physical sensation of heartbreak is real. A crushing pressure in my chest, a hollow feeling in my stomach, lightheadedness that made me grip the edge of the table. I had read about these symptoms, but experiencing them was entirely different. My body understood the betrayal before my mind could fully process it. Tears threatened, but I refused to let them fall in public. I had always prided myself on my composure. my ability to handle difficult situations with grace. But this was beyond anything I had ever faced. I watched as they laughed together, as Jake checked his watch, probably calculating how long he could extend his lunch meeting before returning to work. The woman Sophia, I presumed, touched his arm with the easy familiarity of someone who had done so countless times before. How long had this been going on? The sales associate had mentioned multiple purchases over months. Had I been blind to the signs? Was everyone in our social circle aware of my husband's infidelity while I remained oblivious? As these thoughts raced through my mind, something shifted inside me. The initial shock and pain crystallized into something harder, sharper. Anger. Not the hot, uncontrolled rage that leads to scene-making, but a cold, clarifying anger that focused my thoughts. I had planned to observe and then leave to confront Jake at home with what I had seen. The sensible approach. But watching him spend our money on jewelry for another woman while I sat across the street invisible and forgotten ignited something unexpected in me. Before I could reconsider, I was on my feet crossing the street with purpose. I removed my sunglasses and scarf, no longer caring about concealment. If my marriage was ending today, I would face it head-on. They were still standing outside the store, admiring the necklace in the reflection of the window when I approached. Jake saw me first. The color drained from his face, his expression cycling rapidly through shock, confusion, and fear. "Lana?" he gasped, stepping away from the woman instinctively. "What are you doing here?" The woman looked between us, confusion clear on her face. She was younger than me, perhaps 28, beautiful in an effortless way, with clear skin and bright eyes, now widening in alarm. "Hello, Jake," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" Jake's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. The woman frowned, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Jake?" she prompted. "What's going on?" He finally found his voice. "Sophia, this is Lana, she's my wife." I finished for him, extending my hand to her with forced civility. "I'm Jake's wife, and you must be Sophia. Lovely necklace." The shock on her face would have been comical in any other circumstance. She didn't take my offered hand, instead turning to Jake with growing horror. "Wife," she repeated. "You said you were divorced. You told me your divorce was finalized months ago." So that was his story, the classic lie of the cheating spouse. Jake stepped between us, lowering his voice. "Lana, please, this isn't the place. Let me explain later." "Explain what?" I asked, maintaining my composure despite the scene we were creating. Several passers-by had slowed to observe our drama unfolding. "Explain how you're buying expensive jewelry for your girlfriend while telling her you're divorced." "Girlfriend?" Sophia interjected, her voice rising. "Jake, we've been together for nearly a year. You said I was more than that. You said once your new condo purchase went through, we would move in together." A year. They had been together for a year. Half of that time longer than Jake had claimed, and he was planning to move in with her. When had my husband become this stranger? Jake was in full damage control mode now. "Sophia, please let me handle this. Lana, you're making a scene. Let's discuss this privately." I almost relented. Public confrontations weren't my style, but something made me stand my ground. "I'd like to see the receipt," I said calmly. "What?" Jake asked, genuinely confused by this turn. "The receipt for the necklace. I'd like to see it." Jake hesitated, then reached for his wallet, perhaps hoping that complying would end this encounter faster. He withdrew a folded receipt and reluctantly handed it to me. I opened it slowly, confirming what I already knew. Then I turned to Sophia, whose hand was protectively covering the pendant. "Did you know this was purchased with our joint credit card?" I asked her. "I'm actually the one who paid for your gift. My name is on that account, too." Her face collapsed in shock, her hand dropping from the necklace as if it had suddenly burned her. The store employees had noticed the commotion and were watching from inside, one speaking quietly into a phone, probably calling security. Jake reached for my arm. "Lana, stop this. Let's go home and talk." I pulled away from his touch. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Jake, is this true?" Sophia demanded, tears forming in her eyes. "Have you been lying about everything?" He turned to her, desperation evident. "Sophia, no, it's complicated. I can explain everything." I had seen enough. With all the dignity I could muster, I handed the receipt back to Jake. "You two clearly have a lot to discuss," I said. "And so do we, but not here, not now." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing there, surrounded by curious onlookers. It was only when I reached my car, hands shaking too badly to insert the key, that the tears finally came. I don't remember much of the drive after leaving the jewelry store. I found myself navigating Boston's streets on autopilot with no clear destination in mind. My phone buzzed repeatedly with calls and messages from Jake, but I couldn't bear to look at them. Eventually, I found myself parking outside Zoe's apartment building. Zoe had been my best friend since college, before I even met Jake. She had been my maid of honor, the person who helped me through my father's death 2 years ago, and the one friend who had occasionally mentioned that Jake sometimes seemed too perfect to be real. I hadn't called ahead, but when she opened her door and saw my face, she immediately pulled me inside. "What happened?" she asked, guiding me to her couch. The story poured out of me in broken sentences and occasional sobs. The receipt, the jewelry store, Sophia, the confrontation, all of it. Zoe listened without interrupting her expression, shifting from concern to anger as she understood the full scope of Jake's betrayal. "That absolute bastard," she said when I finally finished. "A whole year? While playing the devoted husband, Lana, I'm so sorry." "I can't go home," I whispered. "I can't face him yet." "You're staying here," Zoe said firmly. "The guest room is yours for as long as you need it." My phone continued buzzing. 20 missed calls from Jake, dozens of text messages. I finally looked at one. "Please come home so we can talk. This isn't what you think. I love you." Zoe saw me reading and gently took the phone from my hand. "You don't need to deal with this right now. Let's get you some tea and then you should rest." That night in Zoe's guest room, I cried until no more tears would come. Every memory with Jake was now tainted, requiring re-examination. Had he been with her during our anniversary trip to Chicago? Had he left our bed to text her goodnight? Had the overtime hours at work actually been time spent in her apartment? The next morning, Jake was waiting outside Zoe's building when she left for work. She called to warn me, and I reluctantly agreed to let him up. If nothing else, I deserved explanations. He looked terrible, unshaven, and wearing yesterday's clothes. When Zoe let him in, before leaving, her icy glare made it clear she was only doing so at my request. "Lana," he started as soon as we were alone. "I'm so sorry you found out this way. I never meant to hurt you." "But you meant to cheat on me for a year," I replied, my voice hoarse from crying. "You meant to lie to both me and her." "It's not what you think," he insisted. "Sophia is just a colleague. The necklace was a thank you gift for her help on a major account." "A thank you gift? That's what you're going with?" I couldn't believe he would try such an obvious lie. "You kissed her, Jake, right on the street, and she clearly thought you were in a relationship." It got complicated," he admitted, changing tactics. "It started as a professional relationship, but things developed. I made a mistake, but it didn't mean anything, I swear. You're the one I love, the one I want to be with." I let out a bitter laugh. "She said you've been together for a year, that you told her you were divorced." that you were planning to move in together." Jake's expression shifted, realizing his initial story wouldn't work. "It hasn't been a year, 3 months, maybe 4. She's exaggerating. And yes, I told her I was divorced because I was weak and stupid. But I never planned to leave you. I was going to end it with her." "When?" I demanded. "After buying her a $5,000 necklace after promising to move in with her." "I didn't promise that," he insisted. "She misunderstood." "Lana, please, everyone makes mistakes. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes." As he pleaded, I noticed his phone light up on the coffee table where he had placed it. A notification from a hotel chain thanking him for his recent stay. My stomach churned. "How many times have you taken her to hotels, Jake?" He followed my gaze to his phone and quickly grabbed it. That's for business travel." "Show me," I said. "What?" "Show me the hotel receipt. Prove it was business travel." His hesitation told me everything. Still, I held out my hand, and reluctantly he unlocked his phone and showed me the email. "A hotel downtown 2 nights ago." The same night, he told me he was working late. "It was a mistake," he repeated. "A stupid, terrible mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life. But Lana, we have 7 years together. Are you really going to throw that away over one indiscretion? One?" I scrolled through his email, finding more hotel receipts. How many hotels, Jake? How many mistakes? He had no answer, just more pleas for understanding and forgiveness. As he talked, I moved to his text messages, something he clearly hadn't expected because he lunged for the phone. Too late. I had already seen multiple conversations with women's names I didn't recognize with messages that left little to the imagination. "Get out," I said quietly. "Lana, please. Get out now, or I will call the police and report you for harassment." He stood, desperation clear on his face. "This isn't over. We need to talk about this more when you've calmed down. I'll give you space, but Lana, I love you. I never stopped loving you." After he left, I called a locksmith to change the locks on our house. Then I packed some essential belongings and moved temporarily into Zoe's guest room. I needed time and space to figure out my next steps. Over the following days, Jake's calls became increasingly desperate. He left tearful voicemails, sent flowers to Zoe's apartment, and even had his mother call me to plead his case. I maintained my distance, speaking only through brief text messages to coordinate when he could collect more of his things from the house. A week after the jewelry store incident, I received an unexpected message from Sophia. She wanted to meet to talk, woman to woman. Against Zoe's advice, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe far from both our usual neighborhoods. She looked different than she had that day, less confident, her eyes puffy from crying. "I didn't know about you," she said immediately. "I swear, Jake told me he had been divorced for nearly a year when we met. He said his ex-wife had cheated on him, that the divorce had been painful, but necessary." The irony was almost too much. "When exactly did you meet?" "Last June," she replied. "At a company function? I'm not even in his department. I work in marketing, and he came to our floor for a presentation. He asked me to coffee the next day. Last June, while I was nursing him through a supposed bout of food poisoning that had him bedridden for an entire weekend." "He was very convincing," Sophia continued. "He talked about building a new life, how much he wanted children, how his ex had been opposed to the idea. Each revelation was another knife. Jake and I had been actively discussing starting a family. We had appointments scheduled with a fertility specialist for the following month." "There's more," Sophia said hesitantly. "After that day at the jewelry store, I did some digging. Jake has been seeing at least 2 other women that I know of. A bartender at the hotel bar near his office and someone from his gym. I found messages on his iPad that he forgot I had access to. 2 other women, plus Sophia, while maintaining our marriage facade. How had he found the time? The energy, the capacity for such elaborate deception? Thank you for telling me, I said, my voice hollow. It helps to know the full truth. Sophia wiped away a tear. I'm so sorry. If I had known, I never would have. I'm not that kind of person. I believed her. She was another victim in Jake's web of lies. As I drove home from that meeting, a strange calm settled over me. The shock was wearing off, leaving clarity in its wake. I knew what I needed to do. The weeks following my discoveries were the darkest of my life. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on design concepts, while my personal life was in shambles. Some days, getting out of bed seemed an insurmountable task. Food lost its taste, and sleep became elusive, punctuated by nightmares when it did come. Zoe was my rock during this time, ensuring I ate something daily and giving me space when I needed it. My parents, who lived in Chicago, offered to come stay, but I wasn't ready for their support yet. I needed to process this on my own terms first. Jake's attempts at reconciliation took a concerning turn. His initial pleas for forgiveness evolved into subtle blame shifting. If you hadn't been so focused on your career, he texted one night. If you had been more attentive to my needs. When these tactics failed to elicit the response he wanted, he tried a different approach. I've made an appointment with a marriage counselor, he informed me. I'm getting help for my issues. I can change Lana. I didn't respond to these messages, which only escalated his efforts. He began showing up at places he knew I frequented, claiming these encounters were coincidental. He sent daily emails detailing his therapy progress, his realizations about his behavior, his plans for our future together. During this time, I started seeing a therapist of my own, Dr. Marshall, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Our sessions provided a safe space to express the rage and grief that I carefully contained around others. What you're experiencing is similar to PTSD, Dr. Marshall explained during one session. The discovery of infidelity, especially long-term deception of this magnitude, creates a trauma response. Your brain is trying to reconcile the person you thought you knew with his actions. These sessions helped me understand that my symptoms, the difficulty sleeping, the loss of appetite, the constant anxiety were normal responses to abnormal circumstances. I wasn't falling apart. I was processing trauma. While I focused on emotional healing, I discovered that Jake's deception extended beyond infidelity. A notification from our bank about unusual activity prompted me to review our joint accounts. I found numerous unexplained withdrawals over the past year, totaling nearly $30,000. Money that had likely financed his double life, paying for hotels and gifts for Sophia and possibly others. When confronted via text about these financial discrepancies, Jake's response was chilling. Be careful about how you proceed, Lana. Remember that I manage our investments. I could make things very difficult for you financially. This threat, so at odds with the apologetic facade he maintained publicly, was the turning point. During my next therapy session, Dr. Marshall observed, "This isn't just about infidelity anymore. This is about control and financial abuse." What should I do? I asked, genuinely uncertain for the first time. What do you want to do? She countered. The answer came with unexpected clarity. I want out, completely out. The next day, I consulted with the divorce attorney, Catherine Chen, who came highly recommended for handling complex, contentious divorces. She reviewed my evidence of Jake's infidelity and financial impropriety with a practiced eye. Document everything, she advised. Every threat, every unexplained expenditure. Forward all relevant emails and texts to a secure account he can't access. We'll need to move quickly to protect your assets. Following her advice, I began meticulously documenting Jake's behavior and securing copies of all financial records. I opened a separate bank account and transferred my personal earnings there, leaving our joint accounts untouched for now on Catherine's recommendation. I reconnected with design contacts I had worked with before meeting Jake, people whose careers had not been intertwined with my marriage. Several offered projects I could work on independently, providing financial security separate from the businesses Jake and I had connections to. After a month at Zoe's, I found a small apartment in a secure building across town. It was nothing like the spacious colonial home Jake and I had shared, but it was mine alone, a blank canvas where I could begin rebuilding. The day I signed the lease, I had a breakthrough in therapy. Dr. Marshall had asked me to identify patterns in my marriage that I might have overlooked. Jake always made the big decisions, I realized aloud. Where we lived, how we invested, which friends we maintained. He was so confident, so seemingly competent, that I deferred to him without questioning. I thought that was what a good partnership looked like, but he was actually controlling everything. "And now," Dr. Marshall prompted, "now I'm making my own decisions, and it's terrifying and empowering at the same time." As I furnished my new apartment with carefully selected pieces, each choice felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I chose bold colors I had always loved, but that Jake had deemed too informal for our home. I hung art that spoke to me, arranged furniture for my comfort, rather than for impressive entertaining. Through it all, Jake continued his campaign of manipulation. When charm and contrition failed, he resorted to mutual friends, having them reach out to check on me, while subtly advocating for his perspective. Some fell for his version of events, while others recognized the manipulation and offered genuine support instead. Catherine advised me not to engage directly with Jake, except through her. "He's trying to control the narrative," she explained. "Every direct contact gives him another opportunity to manipulate you." Following this advice was difficult but necessary. I had spent 7 years responding to Jake's needs and wants. Breaking that pattern required constant vigilance. 6 weeks after moving into my apartment, I felt strong enough to proceed with divorce. Catherine prepared the papers, and we developed a strategy for presenting them to Jake in a way that would minimize his ability to manipulate the situation. "He's likely to respond with either excessive emotion or cold calculation," she warned. "Be prepared for both." We arranged to meet at her office neutral territory where Jake would be forced to maintain composure. When he arrived and saw Catherine present, his confident smile faltered. "I didn't realize we would have company for this conversation," he said, shooting me a look of betrayal. "Ms. Chen is my attorney," I replied calmly. "I thought it best to have legal representation present given your previous threats regarding our finances." Jake's expression hardened. "Threats? I never threatened you. I see you've been building quite a narrative." Catherine interjected smoothly. "Mr. Wilson, we have documented evidence of your statements regarding financial manipulation. We also have extensive documentation of your infidelity and financial impropriety. My client is prepared to file for divorce on these grounds unless you're willing to negotiate a fair settlement." Jake's facade cracked slightly. He hadn't expected me to be so prepared, so resolute. He had underestimated me, just as he had throughout our marriage. "Lana," he said, ignoring Catherine, "is this really what you want? To end 7 years over one mistake, we can still fix this." "One mistake," I echoed. "We both know it wasn't just one. It wasn't just Sophia. It wasn't just the other women. It was years of lies, Jake. Years of me trusting you while you betrayed that trust in every possible way." For a moment, I glimpsed genuine regret in his eyes, quickly replaced by calculation. "If you do this, you'll regret it," he said quietly. "You're emotional now, not thinking clearly." "Actually," I replied, "for the first time in years, I'm seeing things very clearly." Catherine placed the divorce papers before him. "These outline a fair division of assets based on both contribution and Massachusetts state law. Ms. Williams is willing to negotiate reasonable terms, but the divorce itself is not negotiable." Jake stared at the papers, then at me, seeming to finally understand that his manipulations had failed. "I'll need my own attorney to review these," Of course, Catherine replied. We anticipated that. As we concluded the meeting, Jake made one last attempt to speak with me privately. I declined maintaining the boundary I had established. Walking out of that meeting, I felt lighter than I had in months. The road ahead would be difficult with legal proceedings and continued untangling of our intertwined lives, but I had taken the crucial first step. That evening in my apartment, I stood at the window watching the sunset over Boston, a glass of wine in hand. For the first time since discovering Jake's betrayal, I allowed myself to imagine a future defined by my choices alone. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. The journey to healing had truly begun. 1 year after the day I discovered that necklace receipt, I stood in my new downtown office space, watching the morning light stream through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The past 12 months had been a journey of reconstruction, not just of my life's external trappings, but of my very sense of self. The divorce proceedings had been challenging, but ultimately fair. Jake, realizing that his manipulation tactics wouldn't work with Catherine representing me, eventually agreed to a settlement that divided our assets equitably. I kept my design business while he retained his investment portfolio. We sold the colonial house, each walking away with half the proceeds. My design business had not just survived the upheaval, but thrived. Without Jake's subtle influence steering me toward wealthy clients in his social circle, I had rediscovered my passion for innovative, sustainable design. My new portfolio featured diverse projects from affordable housing renovations to eco-friendly commercial spaces. The downtown office I now occupied represented this new direction. Industrial chic with exposed brick and reclaimed wood, it housed my small but growing team of 3 designers who shared my vision. On the wall hung framed features of our recent projects, including a renovation for a women's shelter that had garnered national attention. My personal healing had progressed alongside my professional rebirth. The weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Marshall continued, though their focus had shifted from processing trauma to building resilience and establishing healthy patterns for the future. Betrayal can either break you or transform you, Dr. Marshall had observed during a recent session. You've chosen transformation. The transformation hadn't been easy or linear. There were still days when a random memory of Jake would surface, triggering a wave of grief or anger. But these episodes grew less frequent and less intense with time. My social circle had undergone its own transformation. Some mutual friends had drifted away, uncomfortable with the reality of Jake's deception or unwilling to choose sides. Others had shown unexpected loyalty, including Amanda from Winston Jewelers, who had reached out after hearing about the divorce through industry gossip. I always thought something seemed off about his story, she confided over coffee. He claimed the jewelry was for his wife, but he never wanted anything delivered to your home address. Amanda became an unlikely friend, introducing me to her circle of independent creative women who welcomed me without judgment. Zoe remained my steadfast supporter, celebrating each milestone in my recovery. Remember when you couldn't decide what to order for takeout without wondering what Jake would want? She teased during a recent dinner. Look at you now, making major business decisions and thriving. She was right. The woman who had deferred to her husband's preferences for 7 years now confidently made choices about everything from restaurant orders to business investments. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I took myself on the trip to Italy. I had always dreamed of, but had never taken, because Jake preferred tropical destinations. For 3 weeks, I wandered through Tuscany and the Amalfi Coast, sketching architectural details, sampling local cuisine, and for the first time in years, listening to my own desires without filtering them through someone else's preferences. During that trip, I visited a small jewelry shop in Florence. The artisan's handcrafted pieces caught my eye, particularly a silver pendant featuring an intricate phoenix design. I purchased it without hesitation, a symbol of my rebirth from the ashes of betrayal. On the 1-year anniversary of discovering Jake's infidelity, I received a text message from him, the first direct communication in months. Thinking of you today. I hope you're well. I still miss what we had. I read it once, then deleted it without responding. What we had was an illusion, a carefully constructed facade behind which he had hidden his true nature. I no longer mourned that illusion. That evening, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment, now fully furnished and decorated to reflect my authentic taste. Zoe, Amanda, and a few other close friends joined me to celebrate what I jokingly called my Independence Day. As we shared stories and laughter, I realized how much fuller my life had become since shedding the constraints of my marriage. I had rediscovered old interests Jake had subtly discouraged, like photography and hiking. I had formed genuine friendships based on mutual respect rather than social convenience. The financial independence I had established brought its own freedom. While the divorce settlement had been fair, I took particular pride in the success I had built entirely on my own. My business was now secure enough that I could be selective about projects, choosing those that aligned with my values rather than just my bank account. I had even begun cautiously dating again, not seeking another relationship, but open to genuine connections. The experience was both nerve-wracking and liberating, approaching potential partners with clearer eyes and stronger boundaries. The lessons from my failed marriage were hard-won but invaluable. I had learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags I had previously ignored. I had discovered that being alone was infinitely preferable to being with someone who undermined my worth. Most importantly, I had learned that my value wasn't determined by someone else's ability to be faithful. As my friends prepared to leave that evening, Zoe pulled me aside. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You've built something beautiful from something painful." Later, alone in my apartment, I stood at the window overlooking the city lights. I touched the phoenix pendant at my throat and reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal I had experienced wasn't just about a necklace that wasn't meant for me. It was about a life that wasn't truly mine, shaped by someone else's expectations and deceptions. In losing what I thought was my perfect marriage, I had found something far more valuable, a life authentically my own. For those of you watching who might be going through something similar, remember that discovering betrayal isn't the end of your story. It might be the painful beginning of a better one. Sometimes, the most beautiful transformations emerge from our deepest wounds. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to know in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you find strength during that process? Please like and subscribe if you found value in my experience, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that there is life and even joy after heartbreak. Thank you for being part of my healing journey, and I wish you strength and authenticity in your own.